The story kicks off with a system interface popping up right out of thin air. The MC is instantly flooded with notifications installing multiple systems at the exact same time, right up until an alert flashes, roasting him for having zero stamina. Sucked into a massive energy tornado, he's free-falling to nowhere while an error alarm blares on repeat. Right then, memories of his past life flash before his eyes, specifically the part where he got sent to the next world by Truck Kun while reading a comic book. Next, he gets brief glimpses of the ancient dynasty that is about to become his soul's new zip code. Suddenly face to face with a massive, demonic wolf under the moonlight, he seriously questions how he's supposed to survive in a place crawling with wild beasts. Dropping right back into the digital void, he complains that this so-called grand opportunity is completely unbalanced and totally ridiculous. With his progress frozen, he's terrified of going down in history as the first reincarnated guy to bite the dust from a system overdose. But the moment he touches down without a scratch, he lets out a huge sigh of relief for surviving that chaotic mess. Out of nowhere, a giant gift box smacks him right in the head, leaving him furious that he almost met his maker just for a compressed loot box. 4 glowing orbs pop out of the package, making him realize he's got at least 4 ready-to-use systems on his hands. The screen starts spitting out the most unhinged guidelines like embracing failure, suppressing his feelings, and even opening up a restaurant. Super annoyed with the instructions, he wonders what kind of troll developer programs such weirdly specific quests. Remembering all the humiliating stuff the system forced him to do in the past, he rants that these tasks are basically making him throw his morals out the window. Suddenly, a guy wearing a headband storms in throwing a tantrum, demanding that a certain brother Lin change the storyline right this second. His yelling echoes through the room, making everyone nearby turn their heads. Snapped out of his daydream, the MC looks at the guy in front of him, looking totally clueless. Noticing his buddy looks like he's running on fumes, the headband guy gets worried and offers to call a healer ASAP. Trying his best to look put together, Lin brushes it off, saying he's totally fine and just needs a quick breather. On the inside, though, he's having a total meltdown, remembering that his entire paycheck relies on entertaining this spoiled rich kid with stories. After chilling out for a second, he realizes that even though he unlocked his systems, he actually has to put them to work. Taking a sip of his tea, he starts scheming, trying to figure out which emotion would be the easiest to manipulate in this scenario. Hyped up, the young VIP claps his hands and begs for the story to start back up. Shaking with anticipation, the kid desperately wants to know who the ultimate overpowered master is and what happens next. Seeing the perfect opening, Lin leans on the table and tells the young master to pay very close attention. Tapping his finger on the wood to build up the suspense, he explains that the story's hero flat-out refused to leave the temple. Later that night, just as the main guy was trying to catch some sleep, a super weird noise echoed from outside. Setting up a total thriller vibe, he hints that the gorgeous girl had finally sneaked into the hero's room for a late-night rendezvous. But plot twist, when the door unlocks, it's actually the bearded swordsman, instantly ruining the romantic mood. Completely blindsided by the anticlimactic curveball, the listener's jaw practically hits the floor. Taking another casual sip of tea, the narrator drops the bomb that the swordsman changed his mind, deciding it'd be a total waste to just ignore the young guy. In the client's mind, the incredibly cursed image of the bearded dude grabbing the young hero starts to vividly take shape. The story gets worse, describing the warrior ruining the kid's outfit and making super creepy comments about how soft his skin is. Turning the cringe dial up to 11, Lin explains that the swordsman decided to do the unthinkable instead of leaving him to the ghosts. The listener's brain goes into overdrive, imagining the victim getting grabbed by some grotesque shadow appendages. Keeping the vibe extremely heavy, the MC describes the absolute nightmare screams that echoed through the temple all night long. Shaking with rage, the young master grabs his storyteller's shoulder, pointing out that the swordsman was a filthy dude who notoriously skipped bath time. Absolute fury takes over the kid. He's grinding his teeth, completely unable to handle this dumpster fire of a plot twist. Throwing a massive tantrum, he kicks the table across the room and demands an end to this clown show. With his hands trembling, he points a finger and tries to roast the storyteller. Loki, Lin spots the system notification confirming he just harvested anger, and he internally celebrates his genius plan. Deep down, he's doing backflips, realizing this first quest was basically playing on easy mode. But reality hits fast, and he has to figure out how to chill out the raging VIP standing right in front of him. Leaning on the busted table, the kid accuses Lin of making up this disgusting garbage just to humiliate him. Demanding some respect, he asks if the narrator even comprehends how much power his family holds in this town. Going full mob boss, he threatens that if he hears one more word of this trash, the MC is going to get a permanent game over. Keeping his cool, Lin realizes the kid's temper tantrum is all bark and no bite, so he teases him, asking if he really wants to hear the ending. Spotting a brand new quest pop up for farming negative vibes, he tells the guy to chill and assures him he knows exactly who he's dealing with. Moving at lightning speed, Lin slams his fist on the table and stands up, completely intimidating the kid as he asks if he knows who he's talking to. Backing away in a panic, the rich kid stutters, mumbling that Lin is just a nobody storyteller. Milking the dramatic pause, the MC declares that the storyteller gig is just his cover identity. Without holding back, he shouts that he is actually the boy's biological father, which makes the young master totally lose his marbles and lunge at him. Dodging the attack like a pro, Lin spins a lie saying the family boss paid him to forcefully tutor the kid. Laying it on thick, he explains that while fairy tales are full of pretty girls, the real world is utterly brutal to gullible noobs. Dropping some harsh truths, he says a painful, miserable fate is all that awaits spoiled brats who don't know how the world works. Blinded by rage, the young master swings again, screaming at him to shut his mouth and get lost. Blocking the punch with one hand, Lin sarcastically points out that just 2 seconds ago, the kid wanted to keep him locked up in the mansion. Playing dumb, he claims he made a blood oath to the patriarch and absolutely cannot leave without getting his quest reward. Catching on, the VIP crosses his arms and calls the master a massive fraud who's only in it for the cash. Without a second thought, the rich kid pulls out a fat stack of bills and tosses it in the air, swearing he'll pay double the initial amount. Snatching the cash out of the air with a sly grin, he praises the kid's resolve and announces his grand exit. Sneaking away from the scene, he warns the boy to never cross his path again, while the kid screams furiously in the background. Strutting down the street, he does a mental victory dance over the easy money, noting he's almost hitting the target budget to open his restaurant. While wandering around minding his own business, he notices a massive crowd of people rushing toward the exact same spot. Curious, he taps an older guy on the shoulder and finds out the mob is going to check out some local creep who just got busted. Totally confused by the random gossip, he tries to piece together what on earth is going on. The old man assumes the MC is a shut-in and starts dropping lore about the insane amount of bizarre events ruining their town. He rants about random people spawning out of nowhere and causing total chaos like stealing chickens right in the middle of the street. Other unhinged weirdos spend their entire day harassing the local women. And then there are the guys who jump off roofs on purpose for absolutely no logical reason. All this nonsense has the local guards completely burnt out from chasing eccentric troublemakers. As the old guy wanders off to see the newly captured prisoner, Lin starts connecting the dots on this glitchy behavior. Highly suspicious, he realizes this chaos isn't coming from local NPCs, but from people from his own home world. He figures that if he managed to install a bunch of systems at once, it's basic math that other Ice Guide players got dropped here too. Watching the endless wave of people heading to the main square, he decides to go check it out and confirm his theories. Hitting the plaza, Lin sees a guy tied to a wooden post, while an incredibly angry old man orders him to be beaten into the ground for harassing women. Even with rocks bouncing off his skull, the prisoner finds the whole thing hilariously funny, which just makes the old man infinitely more furious at his toxic attitude. Completely ignoring the aggro mob, the criminal just keeps yelling for everyone to chill out and stop panicking. Scoping out the scene from the back, the MC goes into stealth mode, creeping closer to figure out what the heck is actually happening. Squinting his eyes, he spots something floating right above the tied-up guy's head. A glowing green name tag shows the player's username, leaving Lin absolutely mind-blown by the floating UI. Seeing this, he starts scanning the crowd like a radar, hunting for any other glitches hiding among the locals. It doesn't take long to spot a girl rocking a bunny hoodie and a guy in a ninja mask, who is totally geeking out over how next level the tech is. The masked guy keeps hyping up the insane realism of every single person there, trying to guess what kind of supercomputer is running the algorithm. In that exact second, it clicks for the MC. This entire reality runs on video game logic. But this lightbulb moment brings some heavy paranoia, making him wonder if his whole life has just been a virtual simulation. Searching through his own memories, he realizes that if this is literally a game, nothing he's lived through makes a lick of sense. Frozen in the middle of the street, he gets hit with a massive existential crisis, questioning his own existence in this goofy universe. Just then, the masked guy calls the prisoner an idiot, pointing out that he can't log out from the jail zone without permanently deleting his character. The hoodie girl agrees the guy brought this upon himself, but the ninja theorizes that the prison might actually hold some secret quests. Suddenly, the bunny girl nudges her buddy, getting super paranoid about a random background character staring a hole through them. Whispering back, the guy says that's literally impossible, since they're talking through the system's private voice chat. Hearing every single word loud and clear, Lin is stunned to realize they view him as just another generic NPC. He quickly figures out that their private chat feature is completely useless around him, because he can hear their comms perfectly. While the girl gets totally creeped out by his staring, the MC internally cheers for his new wallhack ability to eavesdrop on their thoughts. Putting the puzzle pieces together, he realizes he got tossed into a closed beta server with 0 tutorials, which totally explains his massive stack of systems. Seeing a golden opportunity, he decides to run a scam and struts right up to the duo with total confidence. Stopping right in front of them, he clasps his hands together and drops a dramatic greeting, calling the masked guy Big Brother. The random jump scare leaves both players totally scrambled, having no idea why this supposed NPC is acting like this. Figuring it's easier to just play along and troll them, Lin makes up a lie about seeing a spiritual aura around them, which is the trademark of legendary heroes. Pointing at his own chest, the masked guy looks bewildered, while the girl panics and suggests they just ignore the scammer. Through their private chat, the guy tries to calm his friend down, terrified of becoming a walking meme on the forums if they get trolled. Eavesdropping on their live chat, the fake NPC thinks it's absolutely hilarious that he can hear them trash-talking him right to his face. Staying in character, he says he totally gets why they'd be skeptical of a random street encounter, but swears they are destined for greatness. Completely out of patience for the lore dump, the hoodie girl crosses her arms and demands to know what his deal is. Doing a ridiculously deep bow, Lin begs to serve the guy as his loyal little brother so they can grind for loot together. The masked player's ego goes through the roof from the compliment, while his teammate pings him saying this has to be the trigger for a quest line. Without skipping a beat, the player grabs the MC's hands, fully locking in the bromance. The two of them start dropping dramatic vows of loyalty right in the middle of the street, leaving the hoodie girl dying of second-hand embarrassment. Hiding his smirk, the MC quietly judges these outsiders for being hilariously easy to brainwash. A system pop-up confirms he completed the submission quest, leaving the scammer amazed that it actually worked before they even exchanged usernames. Right after, a new alert tells him he needs to boost his new boss' street cred, claiming the starter bonus was way too tiny. Checking out the system requirements, he promises himself that making this masked tryhard famous is going to be a walk in the park. Jumping back into his acting gig, he hypes up his big bro, saying he's destined to break the server and just needs one epic moment to shine. Falling for it hook, line, and sinker, the player excitedly asks if he's getting a mission while his friend watches in awe. Nodding with absolute conviction, Lin confirms the hype, making the masked dude practically beg for the quest details. Striking a majestic pose, the fake NPC drops a cheesy quote about how the heavens always test a man's spirit before handing over the crown. In his head, he's scrambling to remember who actually wrote that quote, while the outsider notices the weird phrasing and becomes fully convinced this NPC isn't from Earth. Pointing dramatically at the sky, the scammer asks for a leap of faith, swearing he'll do whatever it takes to level up his new boss. But in the very next frame, Lin points right at the duo and starts screaming bloody murder for help, confusing the heck out of everyone. Yelling loud enough for the whole block to hear, he frames the two of them as the creepy prisoner's accomplices. The aggro crowd surges forward like a zombie wave, accusing the newbies of plotting a jailbreak to rescue their creepy buddy. Shaking like a leaf, the bunny girl tries to defend herself, promising they aren't trying to pull anything shady. Cutting her off entirely, Lin drops his voice an octave and roasts them for trying to log out after getting caught red-handed. Riding the wave of absolute chaos he just caused, the MC turns on his heel and sprints away from the raging mob. As he zooms past them, he quickly whispers that this is exactly what will make them famous, telling them to run for their lives. Sprinting down the road like an Oscar-winning actor, he screams for them to escape, squeezing out some fake tears like a truly loyal sidekick. Once he's safe in an empty alley, he catches his breath and honestly respects how incredibly fast these gamers run away from their problems. With his UI showing a massive intake of negative vibes, he feels pretty proud of himself for speedrunning his system tasks. Meanwhile, way down the avenue, the duo is running for their absolute lives, kicking up a dust cloud trying to dodge a public smackdown. Back at the plaza, the riot gets even worse when someone announces the local boss is dropping a massive pile of cash as a bounty for the accomplices. The tied-up prisoner completely loses his mind seeing the aggro shift to him, crying that he just wanted a quick, immersive prison experience. Strolling casually away from the war zone, Lin can hear the masked guy's furious screaming echoing from blocks away, swearing total revenge on the NPC. Wandering through the quiet backstreets, he complains that his other systems are stalled out, feeling confident that these players will be useful again real soon. Bumping into a familiar face, he smoothly changes the subject, claiming the fugitives vanished like magic. Figuring the duo rage-quit the server to avoid getting wiped, the MC admits that logging out was actually the smart play. But he quickly spots a huge flaw in his business model, realizing he needs to find a way to block their logout button if he wants to keep farming these earthlings. Stopping in front of a flashy real estate office, he decides it's time to finally grind his failure in cooking systems. The second he walks in, a super hyper real estate agent jumps him, asking what kind of lease he's hunting for. Keeping a total poker face, Lin cuts to the chase and says he needs a prime commercial spot. Overflowing with hype, he announces he's opening a restaurant, and the broker takes the bait, swearing he's got the perfect hookup. Taken to the actual site, the MC's jaw drops looking at a colossal mansion, stunned that something this huge and empty even exists. Flexing his ego, the broker brags that for the budget they discussed, only his agency could secure a map zone this massive. Stoked about the steal of a deal, Lin punches his palm, already imagining his new restaurant breaking the server with success. But taking a closer look at the graphics, a cold sweat hits him as he realizes this place is way too huge. Scanning the overgrown weeds, he figures out his restaurant is just a rotting haunted house sitting in the middle of nowhere. Desperate for that commission check, the agent uses some slick sales talk, swearing the 100 silver pieces cover the massive lot too. Watching the guy point at the endless wasteland included in the deed, Lin blindly shakes on the terrible deal without a second thought. The broker is completely shook, asking if the client is 100% sure he wants to buy a literal dump. Already turning around to leave, the MC just barks an order for the agent to send over a construction crew to start the patch notes. Parked outside the rundown shack, Lin reminds himself that he's only doing this to farm system points, not to actually run a legit business. While waiting for the dev team, the builder's MC starts brainstorming the worst possible aesthetics for the place. Right then, a scream of pure disbelief echoes across the yard. The head contractor angrily points at a blueprint for an absolutely hideous sign, asking if the client is trolling them. Chilling on the grass, the kid insists that the garbage design needs to be followed down to the last pixel. Thinking this whole gig is cursed, the workers whisper that the boss must have a corrupted save file in his brain to buy a haunted lot. But the gossip gets cut short by a furious shout. Stomping on the rotted wood, the foreman straight up quits, yelling that crafting something this ugly would ruin his street cred. Seeing the crew ready to walk out, Lin gets a galaxy brain idea. With his UI soaking up the guy's rage, the MC talks trash, claiming their crafting level is just too low to pull it off. Ego totally bruised, the crafters blow a fuse and ask if this punk thinks he can just buy their pride with some coins. Casually throwing up 2 fingers, he offers to bump the final payout by 21%. The furious worker looks ready to throw hands, but his buddy holds him back. In a fraction of a second, the foreman does a complete 180 and praises the kid for knowing how to value top-tier talent. When asked if he can actually pull off the cursed build, the guy throws his hands up and accepts the quest instantly. Stoked to have the sign issue sorted, the scammer drops a warning that his interior design rules are incredibly unhinged. Waving his arms around excitedly, he lists the demands. The tables can't be even, every leg needs to be a different height, and the chairs have to be totally off balance. To make it worse, he demands cracked bowls and mismatched chopsticks made entirely out of heavy iron. Summing up his chaotic vision, he declares the place must look visually repulsive, which immediately gets him a system payout from the failure energy pool. Having dropped his insane patch notes, he tells the crafters to start grinding and sprints out into the yard. Skipping away, he feels like a crypto bro who just made a genius trade, silently thanking the rich kid for being his angel investor. Then his mind wanders to whether his fake big bro has logged back into the server yet. Far away, a random NPC covers his eyes as a blinding flash lights up the sky. 2 pillars of golden light crash down from the heavens, spawning right in the middle of Main Street. Fuming with rage, the masked guy rants that after years of hardcore gaming, this is the first time he's been absolutely played by an NPC. Blinded by the disrespect, the gamer swears on his life he's not letting this slide. The hoodie girl immediately realizes her teammate is totally locked in on getting revenge against the scammer. But before they can even draw their weapons, the locals start pointing and yelling, recognizing the duo as the server's most wanted. The mob charges at them, ready to make a citizen's arrest and farm that sweet 50 silver coins bounty set by the boss. Staring down an army of aggroed NPCs rushing them, the masked guy goes into panic mode and hits the emergency button. The girl copies his move instantly, and they both dissolve into digital pixels. The crowd just freezes, totally glitched out trying to understand how the fugitives literally evaporated again. Back in the real world, the guy is having a meltdown at his PC, throwing stuff around his room because the difficulty scaling is just unfair. Staring a hole into his monitor, he admits the graphics are god tier, but complains that the lack of fast travel and basic features makes the gameplay miserable. Scrolling through the forums, he sees other players crying about the exact same things and decides to start a thread roasting the devs for an update. But he stops typing when a shiny notification pops up in the corner of his screen. Clicking it fast, he opens up an official message from the server admins. The email basically tells players to get good, demanding they learn the universe's mechanics instead of trying to exploit glitches. Taking that sassy dev reply personally, he deletes his forum draft and decides to settle the score with brute force inside the game. Watching the world chat wait for the zone to clear out, he spots the perfect window to log back in. Spawning back into the server, the masked guy gets hit with a jump scare, a massive wanted poster slapped right on a brick wall. Staring at the cursed fan art on the paper, the duo realizes with pure dread that even their official gamer tags got leaked to the public. In some dark corner, the creep who got arrested at the plaza is crying in the fetal position, taking the blame for the entire server crash. Gripping the jail bars, the user screams that he was framed and demands the GMs catch the actual griefer. Totally losing it, he threatens to wipe his account if a guard doesn't show up right now to fix this bug. Huddled in the cell, the hoodie girl lets out a heavy sigh, remembering that deleting their accounts means their avatars are gone forever. With the logout button basically disabled and no escape rope in their inventory, she asks her partner what his big brain play is. Totally mocking him, she asks if his master plan is really just to cosplay as a homeless guy to dodge the guards and find his fake brother. Keeping his swagger, the masked guy confirms that's exactly the strat, because he's dying to know what kind of hidden trial this NPC set up. Hours tick by, and the pitch-black night completely swallows the creepy mansion on the edge of town. Sprinting for the exit in total panic mode, the workers bail on the lot, while Lin tries to reel them back in by spamming them with a higher gold offer. Super annoyed by the mass disconnect, the MC yells, asking how they have the nerve to leave without finishing the trash-tier items he ordered. With his hands pressed together like he's praying, the foreman begs the boss not to make this harder than it is, flat out refusing to work the night shift. Lin tries to apply some gamer logic, guessing they're terrified of some local mob boss charging protection fees. Sweating buckets and shaking out of his boots, one of the workers explains that their problem has zero to do with street gangs. Eyes dilated with pure nightmare fuel, he finally spills the tea. The mansion is basically a ghost spawn point. The guy drops the lore. 3 years ago, during an insane storm, a lightning bolt totally critical hit the estate. Back then, the building was a cotton mill, and the entire family living there caught a game over during the disaster. Soon after, incredibly creepy sound effects started playing from inside, turning the whole neighborhood into a horror game. With no other options, they called in a Taoist monk. Since his DPS wasn't high enough to wipe them out, he just spammed seal magic to lock the ghosts inside. Pointing at the haunted house, the foreman explains that the zone was slowly abandoned, which is exactly why the price tag was practically a giveaway. Feeling way better now that he dodged the night shift, the guy sarcastically congratulates the kid on having the guts to buy the cursed lot. Waving from a safe distance, the crew books it down the dirt road, leaving the MC totally alone in the dark. Standing still in the yard, Lin clenches his jaw, absolutely furious at himself for skipping the dialogue during the real estate deal. Sitting down on the stone steps, he admits his logic completely lagged. He only worried about normal weather events and totally forgot this was a fantasy game. Right behind him, a massive skull wrapped in green fire spawns in midair, proving that this universe obviously has mobs of the undead. Trying his hardest not to rage quit, the MC aggressively bites into a chunk of meat while scanning the creepy layout under the moon. Analyzing the boss fight, he realizes his luck, stats are going to be completely useless against enemies that don't have a physical hitbox. Checking his glowing screens, he sees his other system buffs are also totally locked out for this event. Since his failure system hasn't paid out the big bucks yet, his only strategy is to farm emotions, but his fake teammate is nowhere to be found. Feeling totally scammed, he angrily chews his food, remembering he essentially aggroed the entire town, making it incredibly hard to farm good vibes. Pushing the feelings aside, his hand actually shakes as he realizes he dumped his entire budget into this cursed zone for 0 buffs. Knowing the shady real estate dev would never issue a refund, he spirals, watching his main quest hit a brick wall. But forcing his brain to reboot, he remembers he walked around just fine during the day, meaning the mob AI only goes hostile after sunset. With a flash of genius, the kid cracks a confident smirk, remembering that in a video game the best play isn't fighting the map design. Lin realizes that the only building left standing after the fire doesn't just have ghosts, it functions exactly like a dungeon instance. With that mindset, the MC decides he doesn't need to throw hands himself, and immediately starts designing a raid for his fake brother. Miles away from the haunted house, the village is glowing with nightlife, lighting up streets packed with NPCs. Local merchants are screaming at the top of their lungs, pushing juicy fruits, bread, and sweets on anyone walking by. Strolling casually, the gamer hears a lady trying to lure players into the adult entertainment zone. He stops right outside a super crowded brothel, watching the wild party happening at the bars. Knowing exactly how this guy's algorithm works, he is 100% certain the player would be hanging around a spot like this. But before he can even step foot inside, the MC has to dodge a guy who just got violently yeeted into the street. The guy faceplants into the dirt, angrily complaining that his disguise got exposed way too fast. Super embarrassed, he tries to play off the fact that his inventory is completely broke, while a ghostly figure laughs at his failed VIP access. The club's bouncer demands some respect, warning him that nobody causes lag in his lobby without paying the entry fee. Watching this tragic scene, Lin is honestly amazed at how top-tier the game engine is to include this level of immersive humiliation. Furious, the outsider gives them a one-finger salute and swears he'll be back with a maxed-out wallet in a few days to flex on all of them. Spotting the perfect opening, the fake NPC glides over, warning his buddy that those kind of toxic chat logs are a massive mistake. Flashing a subtle smirk, he pokes him, saying he's totally lacking the drip and posture of a true top-tier player. Glitched out by the random spawn, the kid gets up off the dirt, asking who this random guy striking poses in front of him is. Staying locked in character, the MC introduces himself as just a humble traveler who felt inspired to fix his dialogue options. Striking an incredibly dramatic pose, Lin drops a legendary quote about leveling up through adversity, leaving the user completely starstruck by his aura. Totally pumped, the kid begs for more epic lore drops, but the scammer dodges the prompt, locking back onto his main quest. With max-level charisma, he asks how a guy predestined for the Hall of Fame could waste his XP in a brothel when the boss fight is waiting. Grabbing the gamer's shoulder with a firm grip, Lin commands him to visualize the legendary skill tree reserved only for the chosen ones. Taking the bait exactly as the system intended, the player tags the kid as the mystic guide programmed to recruit the server's heroes. Blown away by his own big brain theory, he is absolutely positive he just unlocked a major story NPC. Flooded with adrenaline, the kid literally rips his own shirt off in the middle of the street, screaming that he was coded to be the main character of this game. Totally bewildered by the unhinged behavior, the MC just stares, asking why the guy is suddenly stripping down to his base skin. Completely ignoring how awkward this is, the masked guy flexes his pixels and demands the quest marker be dropped immediately. Overflowing with try-hard energy, he swears he'll clear any objective even if it wipes his health bar, giving Lin the green light to skip the cutscene. In a flash, the system projects a screen detailing the tragic backstory of a scammed cook who needs backup to clear out his new base. Reading the holographic text, the gamer practically tears up, thinking he rolled a natural 20 by stumbling onto an exclusive quest. Striking yet another bodybuilder pose, he accepts the raid without a second thought, hyping up the fact that the NPC specifically requested his carry. But mid-flex, the big guy freezes as his brain registers a major missing detail on the UI. Looking highly suspicious, he asks what the drop rate for gold and legendary loot is for risking his neck on this run. Staring right into the fake NPC's completely deadpan face, the warrior busts out laughing and swears he was just trolling. Slapping his own chest, he promises he's doing this purely for the karma points and tells the quest giver to lead the way. Reaching the cursed ruins in the dead of night, Lin points at the shadowy house, pinging the exact location of the boss fight. A super sketchy green energy shaped like a skull radiates from the building, making the outsider realize this isn't just some basic real estate scam. With a heavy dose of sarcasm, he points out that absolutely no one would buy this nightmare zone without a hidden motive, while the MC tries to hype up the lot's value. Looking bored out of his mind, the musclehead roasts the kid, calling him a trading genius for buying a literal graveyard. But wanting to speedrun the exclusive quest, he cracks his knuckles and tells the supposed NPC to step back and let him handle the combat phase. Overflowing with misplaced confidence, the player marches right up to the dark door, totally ready to farm the mobs inside. Frozen at the threshold with his lantern up, he scans the pitch-black room trying to lock onto an enemy hitbox. Without warning, a massive glowing eyeball pops out of the neon green fog, inflicting a 100% paralysis debuff on the invader. A second later, a gigantic jacked ghost arm bursts out of the shadows, winding up to absolutely flatten the outsider. Watching the stream from a safe distance, Lin's eyes bug out, totally stunned by the boss' insane damage scaling. With zero time to parry, the user gets launched like a ragdoll after eating a massive critical strike. His avatar crashes hard, leaving a literal crater in the dirt, while the quest giver casually wonders if the guy can actually carry the raid. A female voice echoes out telling them to get lost, making Lin secretly cheer his RNG for running into a ghost girl right after leaving the club area. Right then, a colossal ghost dude floats into view and demands the player stop sending weird chat messages to his wife. Swinging a wooden pillar the size of a tree, the spirit yeets the invader into the sky a second time, leaving Lin amazed by the boss' stamina bar. Buried in a hole and looking like absolute garbage, the tank insists he's at full HP despite the apocalyptic combo he just took. Faking some sympathy, the scammer suggests they try a different strat or look for an alternate route to clear the objective. Acting super disappointed, he warns that he's just going to recruit a different carry if the warrior flops, making the player jump up to protect his exclusive rights to the quest. Wasting no time, the guy pops a sprint right back into the haunted house, completely thirsty for the run back. But the second attempt is a speedrun to failure. He gets violently blasted back out into the yard, accompanied by another roar from the aggroed ghost. Taking heavy fall damage, the fighter literally faceplants and slides through the dirt, stopping perfectly at the fake NPC's boots. Dragging himself through the ruined grass, he starts flaming the ghost in chat, furious at the completely broken difficulty curve of this dungeon. Using the guy's rage as leverage, Lin leans in and whispers that he read a wiki rumor about why the monster is actually guarding the zone. Cranking up the mystery, he drops a lore hint that the boss is hiding a god-tier relic inside its actual spirit body. The second he hears the word loot, the player's eyes light up with pure greed, instantly wiping his memory of how badly he just got beaten. Getting a second wind, he flexes his pixels and screams that he's going to strip the dungeon boss of all its legendary drops. The hype lasts about 2 seconds before he gets ejected through the front door again, taking a flying shoe right to the noggin on his way out. Collapsed near his partner's feet with his health bar basically at zero, the user tries to forfeit the quest, but the scammer complains he hasn't made a single % of progress. With his face totally wrecked from the chain combos, the poor guy doesn't understand how anyone could say he didn't give it his all. Shivering in pain, he points to his own busted face as hard proof of the absolute torture chamber he just walked into. Switching to a pro-gamer tone, the kid accuses the warrior of failing the scouting phase, since he got wiped without even getting a screenshot of the boss's face. Taking a massive hit to his ego, the masked guy holds back his tears and swears he'll check the corners this time. Burning the very last drop of his stamina, he winds up and charges straight back into the terrifying hitbox of the entity. Crying absolute rivers mixed with blood, he screams that he's putting all his chips on the table to secure the dub. Watching the noob march straight into the meat grinder, Lin cracks a half smile, loving how these server outsiders are basically free labor. Checking his floating UI, he finds it completely bizarre that the system is demanding positive vibes right during this absolute slaughter. After all, factoring in the insane amount of damage the guy took acting as a meat shield, his mental health bar should have collapsed a long time ago. Suddenly, a high-pitched wail of absolute agony shatters the silence and cuts right through the old building's gloomy vibe. Crawling out through the green smoke looking like minced meat, the fighter reaches his hand out begging for a heal. Right behind him, a dark spectral claw spawns out of the ground, letting him know the boss' patience meter has finally hit zero. Yanked violently back into the shadows, the player spits blood into the air while the monster promises to drop a banhammer he will never forget. Covered in Lore's blood, the outsider asks if Lin was planted by the ghost as a trap, figuring it makes zero sense for a chosen guide to talk like that. Keeping his face completely chill, the fake NPC asks if the kid hasn't noticed a massive gameplay mechanic yet. Totally confused by the riddle, the fighter struggles to figure out what obvious clue didn't render on his screen. Instantly, Lin points out that the ghost hasn't actually had the guts to wipe him out, dropping a heavy hint that the real issue here is just a severe skill issue on the player's end. Clenching his fists, the masked guy admits he's done coping, agreeing that his stats and loadout are just straight garbage for this raid. Slapping a hand on his buddy's shoulder, the MC confesses he already knew the guy was a low-level noob, with a massive debuff against supernatural mobs. Super triggered by the roast, the big guy demands to know why his teammate is looking at him with that smug face. Taking a step back, the scammer praises the kid's reckless courage for rushing the boss room without hesitating, even knowing he was out-leveled. Waving his hands like a theater kid, he declares that this hardcore mindset guarantees a legendary endgame, basically locking him in for a king's ending. Hyped up by the pep talk, the fighter gets starry-eyed and asks if his base stats are really that cracked. Right then, the UI chimes, confirming a massive drop of positive vibes, making Lin realize that stroking a gamer's ego yields epic loot. Flexing his muscles, the guy begs the MC to let him carry the run, feeling super guilty for calling him a scammer 5 minutes ago. Going totally tunnel vision on the objective, the warrior strikes a super serious, heavy aggro stance. Pulling a massive butcher's blade out of his infinite inventory, he announces that the ghost's fear of actually getting a kill just gave him a galaxy brain strat. Sprinting like a madman back onto the lot, the big guy screams that he's not afraid of a game over and is ready to sacrifice his avatar to break the boss mechanics. Phasing back into the dark zone, the user calls the ghost a camper and demands to be executed right on the spot. Moving at breakneck speed, he swings the heavy blade with max power right into the ghost's hitbox. Furious at the troll move, the monster grabs the fighter and warns him that he is more than happy to grant his wish to log off permanently. But the ghost wife screams for her husband to stop, reminding him that scoring a player kill will corrupt his file, turning him into an angry boss monster and ruining all their progress. Clinging to their mom's pixels, the little ghost kids start crying, begging for the griefer to get kicked from the server immediately. Watching from the sidewalk, Lin mentally high-fives himself, confirming his theory that these spirits are too scared of catching a ban to actually finish off a player. Playing his role to perfection, he yells out, telling his buddy to pull back if the raid is locked, promising he'll just queue up a new teammate. Going full try-hard, the fighter spams his spin attack, swearing he'll never drop the quest and is fully prepared to catch a game over today. Taking a flurry of light attacks, the massive spirit tries to block the absolute spam of unhinged combos. Hitting his absolute limit, the creature roars that he's completely done putting up with this laggy nonsense. Landing a devastating kick, he hits the invader dead center, launching him completely out of the zone's boundaries. Throwing up pixels of blood with a huge grin on his face, the kid actually celebrates getting wiped, hyped out of his mind. Flying through the sky toward the skybox, the user screams for his dad in his final moments before hitting the respawn screen. Wiping the sweat off his forehead, the MC notes that the absolute lack of fear from these players is going to be a massive headache later, while tuning in to the ghost family's crying. Strolling up to the front door, he sarcastically asks why the ghost is crying for the dad of the guy who just got deleted. Pointing a furious finger, the ghost girl blames Lin for forcing her dad to rack up a player kill, totally destroying his chances of leveling up into a cultivator. Ignoring the angry kid, the MC scans the invisible barrier and figures out the monk was the admin who originally locked them in this instance. Once everyone chills out, he offers to open a diplomatic chat, but the little girl instantly hits the decline button. Stubbornly crossing her arms, she swears she'll never drop her lord dump to some random casual. But naturally, she immediately starts leaking the script, explaining that Priest Lee was the one who backed up their clan's data after the fire. The girl explains the spell was coded, so they'd have to farm good karma for 10 years, until a golden RNG drop finally spawned. Rubbing his chin, the scammer processes the rumor, and decides this priest's motives sound incredibly shady. Getting the girl's attention, the ghost dad defends their admin, but admits he's terrified of turning into a corrupted file if he breaks the rules. Patting his daughter's head, the entity mocks Lin, daring him to step inside and see if he can farm any more deaths. Asking everyone to lower their volume, the kid points out that the monster still has full control of his AI, which proves his karma farming is actually working. Totally lost on why this player is even here, the giant ghost tells him to skip the dialogue and get to the point. Flashing the deed to the server zone, Lin drops the bomb. If they don't want to trigger any more game overs, they need to evacuate the chunk right now. Dialing up the tension, he reminds them of the absolute nightmare that Crazy Warrior caused just 5 minutes ago. Grinding his teeth, the ghost doubts there's another noob dumb enough to raid his house, swearing he will never abandon his spawn point. Crossing his arms, the MC claps back that deleted files belong in the trash bin, and threatens to summon another admin to permaban them. Backed into a corner by the threat, the ghost stumbles over his words, asking what the new server owner plans to do with them. The kid explains that the original monk might have been playing nice, but leaving prime real estate locked for 10 years proves he was plotting something. Waving his hands like a politician, Lin announces he's not taking an L on this deal, but he'll offer them a patch note where everyone can share the server in peace. Eyes glowing with hype, the Ghost Clan nervously asks what this epic golden opportunity could possibly be. On the inside, the scammer is laughing his head off at how gullible these NPCs are, amazed they're swallowing his fake lore so easily. Taking total control of the lobby, he sets the rules. He runs the restaurant during the day cycle and they get the night shift, promising no aggro as long as they don't cause lag. Super anxious, the dad asks if the family's hitboxes will mess with the human players in the zone. Faking total empathy, the MC swears that crossplay is the only way to keep them from turning into mindless aggro mobs. The kid spins a completely bogus lore theory, claiming that hanging around live players will actually give the little girl an XP boost. Pulling each other into a massive hug, the ghosts buy the fake patch notes completely, believing that mingling with humans is now their main quest. Flashing a relieved smile, the girl praises the new guy for not being a troll, which Lin accepts without skipping a beat. Right then, the UI confirms he just harvested a massive drop of good vibes from the ghost family, leaving the kid amazed that his scams work even on deleted files. Riding the wave, he promises that soaking up human HP regen can actually trigger a direct respawn, locking in his absolute genius plan. Completely bamboozled, the undead family drops to the floor, spamming the bow emote with massive gratitude. Walking away looking like a boss, the scammer hears the ghost agree that pay-to-win players are evil, deciding the new boss's terms are way better. Winking with total confidence, the MC swears that following his TOS will guarantee everybody a massive payout. Running the numbers, he figures that if the ghosts are this easy to hack, the original monk admin isn't going to be a real boss fight. Digging around in the burnt grass, the manager's weird behavior makes the giant ghost raise an eyebrow. Finding it hilarious, the monster figures the kid is looking to loot the annoying player who just got wiped. But zooming in on the crater, the ghost's jaw drops when he realizes the player's model has totally despawned. Grouped around the empty hole, the family is completely glitched out by the fact that someone who just got critical hit into oblivion evaporated. The dad theory crafts that maybe his DPS was too low and the kid just combat logged, which would explain why his own karma meter didn't drop. Scooping up the loose coin drops, Lin confirms the guy got a game over, knowing these hardcore gamers would never leave their loot behind if they were still alive. Handing over the dropped items, the ghost wife backs up the idea that the loot drop proves the invader got fully wiped. Freaking out, the massive ghost concludes that these chosen players must have God mode enabled, spiraling into a panic about the inevitable revenge raid from a guy who can't die. Waving off the family, Lin tells them to go AFK and rest, promising to drop a full lore explainer on this glitch later. Trying to nerf their panic, he assures them the noob barely lost any gear and will be on a long cooldown before he can raid them again. Studying the server's meta, the MC does a mental victory lap seeing that noobs prioritize their save files, planning to farm them for drops later. Miles away at the respawn point, the player is having an absolute meltdown, screaming at the dev team for a mechanic that wipes your inventory after a death. Leaning on a brick wall, the kid cries tears of pure rage over losing his loadout, terrified that if he triggers the NPC, he'll fail the quest chain completely. Getting hit with the hunger debuff, the fighter rages at how incredibly punishing the survival mechanics are. He complains it's absolute garbage to die of starvation right when he unlocked a quest. Just then, something in the street catches his eye. Staring at some local beggars farming copper coins, his brain expands. The kid realizes he can bypass the hunger meter by begging instead of grinding for food money. Hyped about the new exploit, the player crouches down by a wall. He decides to fully commit to the roleplay and start farming loose change. But he immediately cancels the animation, terrified that the quest giver might spot him doing this low-tier strat. The kid is terrified of ruining his chosen hero aesthetic and getting his quest locked. Refusing to take the massive reputation hit, he decides to log out for a bit. The warrior plans to hit the forums and look for food exploits that won't ruin his dignity. Right after he logs out in a flash of light, the camera pans to an alley close by. The hoodie girl and her masked teammate are perfectly positioned in the exact same beggar stance. Blending into the shadows, they both scan the crowd of NPCs like hawks. Holding a tiny wooden bowl, the girl spams the plead emote at everyone walking past. Cooking up some fake lore, the masked guy tells everyone their spawn zone was destroyed by a flood. He squeezes out some tears, claiming their health bars are flashing red from starvation. The acting pays off, and a random NPC tosses some coins into the bowl, hyped. The kid spams the thank you voice line at the guy over and over. Riding the wave of good RNG, the girl also drops some blessed dialogue, wishing the high-level player max luck and protection. Completely disgusted with this gameplay loop, she asks her friend why he's insisting on grinding the beggar class. He claps back asking what other skill tree they even have unlocked. The masked guy reminds her they literally have a bounty on their heads in this zone. He argues that this, even if it's trash tier, is the only way to survive while they camp out for the scammer. Trying to keep the party's morale high, he declares that true gamers have to adapt to the meta. While she slowly loots the copper, he says he's going to check the wiki. Completely locked in, the masked guy swears that the beef with his fake relative is a matter of server honor. He promises he'll keep holding the angle on that scammer no matter what. With laser focus, the outsider dumps all his stat points into the new survival meta. Dropping all his pride, he throws himself on the ground and starts spamming the voice chat for donations in the middle of Main Street. Acting like a total pro, the kid drops a massive fake backstory about losing his guild leaders and getting abandoned at level 1. The fake tragedy completely stuns the zone. The NPCs flock over, taking massive emotional damage from the fake lore. A shower of copper starts flooding the scammer's inventory. Their empathy meters maxed out, the pedestrians are absolutely wrecked by the sad dialogue and feel terrible for the kid's brutal playthrough. In a matter of minutes, the trash tier bowl is overflowing with loot from the crowd. Getting super salty, the bunny girl tells him to mute his mic and stop stealing her mobs. She complains her farming route was totally optimized before he started griefing her. Shrugging off the toxic chat, he asks why his teammate logged back into the server so fast, super happy. She drops the news that a veteran player just uploaded a god-tier guide online. Bowing after scoring another coin drop, the player acts totally skeptical of the guide. He thinks it's probably just another troll post designed to bait noobs. Pointing her finger at the skybox, the girl explains that the tutorial perfectly breaks down the RNG mechanics to unlock a legit class in this game. Cutting to a flashback, the screen shows the buff warrior successfully unlocking the blacksmith apprentice class. The NPC owner checked his stats and recruited him instantly. Crunching the data, the guy realizes that real-world skill trees actually port over into the game engine. He notes that the physics here match standard Isekai rules. The bunny girl pushes back, saying he missed the main point. She highlights that the warrior actually got an official system pop-up confirming his new blacksmith class. Chilling on the dirt, the girl drops the veteran's ultimate tip. According to the wiki, boosting your stealth by blending in with NPCs is way more meta than trying to farm mobs in the wild. The guy processes the tip about acting like an NPC and tries to figure out how to program that into his daily loop. Leaning back on the brick wall, the outsider announces that running the beggar class literally perfectly matches that strategy. His teammate is totally thrown off by the sudden switch-up. Pointing at the empty air, he tells his buddy to check her HUD. A massive spreadsheet opens up, showing the insane amount of XP and gold he's farmed just from begging. Scanning the pop-ups, the hoodie girl's eyes practically pop out of her skull. The absurd amount of passive income her partner is generating looks totally broken. Way across the map, the morning sun lights up a cozy safe house, where Lin is still enjoying his AFK time. Jolted awake, the kid thinks he slept past his alarms, but he quickly realizes the massive noise was just his own UI spamming him with notifications. Checking his quest logs, he sees the Teach Your Fake Bro a Job mission just got flagged as complete. The reward is a massive permanent buff to his wealth stats. Completely frozen, the scammer stares at the blue screen, trying to process the absolute spaghetti code of this new update. Popping a vein, he screams, trying to figure out what kind of glitch the masked guy pulled off overnight. The MC thinks it's completely unacceptable that the devs coded begging as a legitimate career path. Throwing a full-on rage fit in bed, the MC yeets his pillow, totally disgusted by this new patch. He thinks it's absolute garbage that he's supposed to boost a guy who wants to play a street bum forever. While fixing his hair, he immediately hits cancel on that plan. Lin knows the beggar class has zero endgame scaling, and is terrified his teammates' trash build will ruin his own progression. Gripping his comb so hard it almost snaps, the kid decides to go nuclear. He swears hell force his gullible teammate to wipe his save file and restart the tutorial. Stomping out of his spawn room with max aggro, the MC locks in his waypoint. He tells himself he's going to hunt down his big bro and patch this glitch himself. The server is already fully loaded, with the trade zones buzzing under the bright morning sky. Walking at a casual pace, Lin decides his first objective is restoring his hunger meter. He plans to use the downtime to scout out the local food stall's business models. Crossing into a packed tavern zone, he gets hit with a super energetic voice line from a hyped-up waiter. Wiping down the table at max speed, the NPC tells the player he picked the best spawn point. He flexes that their crafting recipes are the best in the server. Sitting down like a VIP, Lin praises the high server tick rate and tells the guy he's getting a tip. The NPC is shocked and gets super hyped about the extra gold. Dropping some loose change on the table, the kid says it's just a bonus for the high-tier service. The worker smiles from ear to ear, thrilled by the high-level player's generosity. Keeping a low profile, the MC watches the UI confirm another drop of good vibes from the waiter, proving his farming route is highly optimized. With a sharp eye, Lin figures out that manipulating NPC aggro meters is way easier than he originally theorized. Crossing his arms, he confirms that having max gold basically bypasses all the level caps in this zone, cutting off the guy's thank yous. Lin assures him he earned the drop. Keeping up the max charisma dialogue, the scammer pretends to be a veteran explorer who has never seen such a high-tier NPC. The over-the-top praise literally makes the poor pixel man cry. Going completely ruthless, Lin hypes up the waiter's honor and speed stats. He confidently predicts that the guy will unlock his own restaurant base in the endgame. Closing out the cutscene like an absolute pro, the kid points and tells the worker to trust his own skill tree, dumping a massive buff of optimism onto the poor guy. Suddenly, a random player starts screaming in the chat for alcohol. The waiter instantly drops his smile and rushes over furiously to deal with the troll, tossing out a quick "my bad" to Lin. Finding the AI pathing hilarious, Lin dismisses the guy so he can finish his meal without lagging. Touched by the VIP's chill vibe, the worker promises to lock his loyalty to him forever. Smug about his own exploits, the MC celebrates the massive pile of energy points he farmed off one NPC, deciding this waiter is basically an infinite resource node. After a 60-minute buffing session, Lin's table is totally cleared of empty plates. Getting ready to leave the zone, he adjusts his armor, feeling super proud of his XP gains on top of the system buffs. The chat with the waiter drops some massive lore hints about his fake brother. Navigating a low-light alleyway, Lin pulls out a heavy butcher's blade, calling out for his big bro. An old homeless NPC sitting on the pavement gets jump-scared and asks what the kid's aggro is about. With zero hesitation, the kid swings, burying the heavy weapon into the brick wall just inches from the old man's face. The guy tries to act tough, warning him that intimidation checks don't work on him. Totally ignoring the lethal weapon, the beggar casually picks his nose. He makes it crystal clear that the tracking marker for the guy the kid is hunting isn't on his map. Waving his finger to make his point, the old man swears on his life that the masked guy never spawned in this alleyway. Pissed that the interrogation minigame failed, the main character rips the blade out, pulling chunks out of the low-res brick wall. Switching strats, Lin dumps a massive pile of shiny coins into the old man's bowl. The NPC's attitude patches immediately, swapping to a greedy smile at the sight of easy loot. Watching the copper pile up, the scammer sighs at the grind and re-rolls his dialogue options to extract any useful leaks from the old man. Taking the raid leader tone, the MC cuts the filler. He demands the spawn coordinates and the username of the server's top beggar guild leader. Hyped about the massive tip, the old man drops the lore. He confirms there are absolutely no hidden factions or beggar syndicates programmed in this zone. Skeptical of the dialogue, the kid narrows his eyes. He tries to figure out if the guild is actually unreleased content or if this low-level NPC just doesn't have the clearance. Ignoring the player's totally suspicious glare, the old man repeats that survival out here is basically a solo queue, with zero admins running the show. Massaging his jaw, Lin tries to reverse-engineer the game code. He doesn't get why his teammate picked such a trash-tier class if there isn't even a support guild to carry him. Waving a gold coin in front of the old guy's face, he swaps strats again, asking who exactly sponsors the server's poor, totally hypnotized by the premium currency the beggar cracks. Flexing his ego, the old man points at the skybox and drops a secret lore bomb. He claims that begging in this chunk is only allowed if you're backed by a ruthless VIP. Taking in this dark lore, the MC's eyes widen, totally fascinated by his teammates' RNG. He starts thinking the masked guy accidentally triggered a massive hidden quest line. Hearing the prompt, the street veteran throws his arms up and screams, asking who this legendary VIP could be. The kid fires back, demanding the username. Pushing his chest out, the old guy declares that he is the gigabrain, top-tier charitable admin of the zone who hands out the street permits. In that exact second, the MC internally questions if all these titles aren't just this NPC totally padding his own stats. Dropping a thumbs-up emote, the homeless guy confirms his own lore is canon and swears he isn't trolling. Taking a few slow steps, Lin points out that it's super weird for someone to be running an interrogation check like this, and asks if the old guy is secretly an intelligence broker. Hearing that, the guy does a slight bow and swears his chat logs are clean, completely denying any ties to the server's underground factions. The old man's pupils max out, completely shaken by the random ban threat he just received. Clearing his throat to play it off, the kid promises he's not trying to start a PvP match, claiming his quest log is already full. Chilling out, the beggar drops a massive sigh of relief and admits that accusation almost wiped his health bar. Checking the blue UI, Lin notices that dropping the guy's aggro gave him a charisma buff and unlocked the skill tree for dark energy. In his mind's eye, the kid looks at 2 floating seeds and decides that picking which one to plant isn't even a debate. Locking in his strat, he flashes a totally villainous smirk loaded with bad intentions. Holding the glowing green orb, the scammer laughs, claiming that a saint-like player like himself is obviously going to roll for the positive vibes. But the system notification hits him with a congratulations for planting the negative tree, showing a dark little sprout popping out of the ground. Staring at the green sphere, the kid is totally confused when the pop-up says his account is restricted from equipping that item. Mind blown, he wonders how the system auto-locked his choice, realizing he's been permanently banned from playing the good guy route. In a burst of absolute rage, the kid stomps the ground furiously, convinced the game's anti-cheat is basically trolling him. Grabbing his head in a total panic, Lin complains that the AI is griefing him, hard-locking him into the villain role for this playthrough. Forcing his poker face back on, he switches to a high-level boss aura, basically forcing the old guy to bow down and respect his admin privileges. While the old man spams the bow emote, the MC realizes the charisma stat is totally broken for farming confidential lore. Trying to be helpful, the old guy offers to ping the South Zone moderator to fix the bug. Holding his hand up to cancel the action, the kid says it's fine and drops some fake thank yous, pretending to fully trust the NPC. The beggar flashes a happy smile over the reputation boost, while the scammer internally wonders if his server boss cosplay is actually tricking anyone. Pointing at the wanted posters on the brick wall, Lin asks about the griefers who tried to breach the prison zone. The old man confirms he saw the patch notes about them. Staring at the pavement, the MC finally connects the dots. His fake brother's beggar build was just a desperation strat to wipe his wanted level. Processing the server rules, he notes that since the logout button is disabled in jail, setting a trap for his target is going to be incredibly easy. Handing over another gold drop, the scammer orders the old man to ping the moderator that the fugitives are currently running beggar skins in this sector. Staring at the gold coin, the old man starts sweating, feeling like absolute garbage for reporting players who have 0 gear and 0 loot. Pushing the moral compass aside, Lin demands the intel drop to speed up the raid, and the guy agrees to snitch in exchange for the XP boost. Spinning around to log off from the convo, the kid bails using the excuse that his main quest is timed and he can't leak his username. Standing perfectly still in front of the wanted poster, Lin uses telepathy to tell his fake partner that he absolutely hates watching his guildmates tear each other apart. Ripping the poster off the wall, he whispers that the only way the partner avoids a permanent ban is by dodging this trap or tanking the jail time without deleting his account. Crushing the paper violently, the MC swears that only if the guy clears this endurance check will he actually accept his friend request. With a super dark expression, he warns that if the guy fails the QuickTime event, he'll have to step in and dish out the ban hammer himself. With 0 chill, the kid throws the partner's fan art on the ground and stomps all over it before hitting the road. Kneeling next to the dark plant, he complains that the AI totally bricked his save file, forcing him to exclusively speedrun the evil route. Watching the NPCs looping their walking animations, he drops a heavy sigh, totally exhausted by the garbage rules hard-coded by the dev team. Navigating a few more blocks, the character hits the waypoint for the carpentry shop hired to craft the furniture for his new base. Flashing an evil grin, he figures that survival in this game requires griefing other players and min-maxing his own stats so he doesn't get one shot. Checking out the wonky stools by the door, the kid theorycrafts that the aesthetic of imperfection is something even casuals could appreciate. But getting annoyed by the server lag, he wonders if he'll actually have to haul this cursed furniture to his base by himself. Nearby, a crafter is whispering to his buddy about the psychotic player who ordered the glitchy tables, plotting to raid the kid's storage chest. Eavesdropping from a distance, Lin figures out why the progress bar is stuck. These lazy NPCs were just stalling for time. Going into stealth mode, the kid pops up behind them and drops his voice, asking if this is their standard guild behavior. Jump scaring the crafters, the MC turns on his boss Aura and demands they summon the guild leader to the lobby right this second. Super triggered by the disrespect, the workers start yelling, asking who this random noob thinks he is and if he's trying to get his account deleted. Totally unfazed, Lin drops a mocking smirk and announces that he is the exact psychotic VIP they were just trash-talking. Both crafters' eyes go wide at the exact same time, hit with the stun status after realizing the kid heard their entire voice chat. Cutting to the main workshop lobby, a deep, booming voice tells the premium customer to take a seat and chill out. Chilling in a high-tier chair, the kid gets served by the shop owner, who immediately flames his team for having zero chat etiquette. Pointing a firm finger right at the manager, the MC cuts the filler and demands to know if the crafting queue is finishing today or if he's doing a chargeback on his gold. Keeping up his customer service smile, the bearded boss tries to lower the aggro meter, swearing the lag wasn't intentional. Hitting him with a death glare, Lin drops the nice guy act and asks if the big guy is going to keep spamming fake patch notes. Out of nowhere, the master crafter drops to his knees so hard he cracks the floorboards, which makes the whole team scream in absolute terror. Stunned by the insane sound effect, the kid jumps in his chair, totally failing to process why the boss just spammed the dramatic emote. Rubbing his hands together like a beggar, the manager uses the opening to cry about how custom skins require massive amounts of grinding. Pushing his charisma stat to the limit, the guy begs for a deadline extension, promising to ship the entire inventory the second the progress bar hits 100. Totally losing it, Lin stands up furiously and yells that he literally caught the assistants plotting to grief his storage base. Sweating waterfalls, the bearded guy waves his hands like crazy, swearing on his life they would never hack a premium client like that. Even with the absolute toxic atmosphere filling the lobby, the graphics outside are perfectly chill under the afternoon sun. Resting his chin in his hand, Lin drops a sideways smirk and mentions that the supernatural guild has already moved into his zone. Hearing that lore drop, the boss and his crew bug out, getting completely swallowed by a debuff of irrational fear. Leaning in close, the scammer reads the room's terror level and notes that this makes the whole transaction way easier. The bearded guy literally begs him to stop spamming those chat logs. Ice cold, Lin points at every NPC in the room, tagging the boss as the husband Song Jinan and the workers as the wife and kid. Dripping with sweat, the crafter tries to change the dialogue tree and stutters out that those usernames don't belong to anyone in this lobby. Glowing with a super cursed aura, the kid drops a hint that he isn't the only one waiting for the base to open. With his eyes glowing in the dark, he drops the ultimate ban threat. If the sun goes down, the server is sending a much scarier admin to collect the debt. In total panic mode, the massive guy collapses on the floor, grabbing the kid's leg and crying rivers while begging for a pardon. Tapping the boss on his skull, Lin tells him to stop trolling and demands the entire furniture drop be in his inventory right at sunrise. Shaking like a leaf, the crafter throws up a thumbs up and promises he will absolutely hit that deadline without fail. Turning his back to log out of the shop, the MC announces the trade is locked, as long as the server lag doesn't delay the shipment. Knowing exactly how much psychological damage he just dealt, he lets out a totally evil laugh, basically farming his own villain XP. Strutting away looking like a final boss, the kid silently wonders if that massive cutscene will actually buff their crafting speed. From out on the street, a high-pitched wail of pure nightmare fuel echoes from the shop, confirming the MC just scored a massive drop of fear points. Face planted on the floor and literally foaming at the mouth, the boss' screen goes black, while his crew decides they will never try to scam a player with admin ties again. Walking down the road, Lin figures he's going to have to hit every single vendor with the intimidation check to guarantee his loot drops on time. But he quickly flips his mindset, deciding that toxic blackmail is actually a top-tier buff for production speed. Stopped outside the blacksmith hub, the kid scans the shop's tag to confirm it's the next waypoint on his route. Inside, the massive sound of a hammer smashing into a glowing hot hitbox echoes endlessly through the grungy room. The noob, who's actually a player, notices his mentor is completely tensed up and doesn't understand why the NPC's face looks like he just saw a ghost. Right then, Lin casually strolls up to the giant blacksmith to check on the status of his cursed weapon order. Holding an angle from the back, the new player thinks it's super weird that this absolute tank is shivering from the cold inside a room that's literally on fire. Giving the crafter a firm handshake, Lin asks in a super toxic tone if he'd prefer a visit from an off-server entity to handle the transaction. Hit with an unblockable panic attack, the blacksmith throws his hands up and shakes his head rapidly, hitting decline on that offer immediately. Happy that the trade is locked, Lin logs out of the shop right as his UI chimes with a double XP drop of negative vibes. In his head, he does a victory lap, celebrating how insanely overpowered the ghost mobs are for bullying the locals and farming points. While walking away, the MC's radar pings an outsider player hiding in the shop, so he decides to keep his distance to avoid drawing unnecessary aggro. Crouched behind a pillar in full stealth mode, the kid keeps eavesdropping on the cutscene without breaking his cover. Walking the other way, the scammer realizes how hard it is to bait real players when he doesn't have any legit system quests to hand out. Getting back to the grind, the apprentice asks his boss what the heck that low-level kid was doing in their zone. Swinging his hammer with a massive crit, the crafter admits he's also super curious about what kind of corrupted file is running that insane customer's brain. Smashing the anvil with a deafening hit, the guy declares that the kid is, without a doubt, a total griefer. Trembling with rage, he explains that the kid's gameplay loop is completely toxic, bringing up the lore about the burnt-down server chunk. The gossip mill says the kid is completely insane for trying to drop a base right on top of a cursed spawn point. Terrified, the worker leaks that even the deleted ghost children agreed to craft the cursed gear. The hammer strikes the hot metal again, throwing a massive particle effect of sparks across the entire room. Crying about his ruined save file, the boss complains that he had to burn his own gold stash to craft useless junk items. Hearing the complaining, the noob suggests they just hit the refund button if the final build is total trash. With his eyes completely blown out, the bearded guy stares at his apprentice and asks if he seriously thinks the lag is caused by laziness. Screaming at the top of his lungs, the boss finally admits his actual nightmare is having that cursed mob spawn inside his own base. Mind blown by the lore drop, the player is absolutely stunned to realize how hard this NPC is debuffed by his fear of the paranormal. Super curious, the kid asks if the buyer has a corrupted mental stat, and the boss confirms the kid's file is totally unhinged. Scanning the environment, the newbie applies standard MMORPG logic to try and crack this massive puzzle chain. Getting hyped, the giant realizes he just bumped into a legendary NPC and swears he's going to trigger his exclusive quest line. Stepping up to the plate, the user volunteers with max enthusiasm to act as the courier for the crafted loot. Spinning a quick lie, the noob swears the rest of the guild is too terrified to run the mission, stepping up to take the aggro himself. The bearded boss hits the apprentice with a massive bear hug, praising him as a top-tier carry while basically draining his oxygen bar. Spamming the gratitude emote, the giant agrees to trigger the delivery quest right at the server reset tomorrow. But in reality, the outsider is already full sprinting with his weapon drawn straight toward the haunted zone, completely thirsty for revenge. Nearing the cursed chunk, he admits he totally fed his first run and decides to scan the boss mechanics during the daylight cycle. Glowing with confidence, the fighter declares that the dumb spirit only has melee stats, making it absolute fodder for his blade build. Tearing up a little, he complains that he only used that cringe internet exploit just to secure a respawn, and he is absolutely desperate to loot his old gear. Breaching the rotting base, he finds the map totally empty, with 0 glowing items indicating his drops are there. Hitting peak panic, the invader asks the chat if NPCs are coded to loot dead players, or if another ninja looter passed through the zone. With a hand over his mouth, he gets absolutely crushed by the thought that the legendary quest giver just dropped him from the party after one wipe. Forcing himself to cope, the big guy nods, theorizing the boss went AFK and the mobs are just in sleep mode. While he's throwing a party over the idea of soloing the dungeon, the Ghost Clan is actually tracking his every move from the stealth zone. The monster actually agrees with Lin's theory on these chosen players, super relieved they have a ceasefire during the day cycle. Watching the swordsman suddenly sprint for the exit, the ghost dad pings the family chat that the invader is logging off the map. Out in the yard, the kid raises his sword, absolutely flooded with adrenaline and ready to grind mobs to boost his stats. Glitched out by the insane stamina, the ghosts have absolutely no clue what is rendering inside this crazy kid's brain. The swordsman pops a sprint, cutting through the field like a speedrunner, desperate to hit max level and guarantee the boss kill. Kicking up a massive dust trail, the warrior zooms past the beggar duo camping by the brick wall like a literal lightning bolt. The masked guy checks his radar and guesses the speedster is another player who probably just popped a massive speed buff for a quest. Without missing a beat, the hoodie girl roasts her teammate, pointing out that his fake bro is nothing but a walking debuff. Chewing his food like he has all day, the kid states that if his HP hits 0, they'll just surrender to the guards to clear their wanted level. He figures that fighting the ban is totally doable, deciding he'd rather wipe his save and restart than sit in an AFK jail cell forever. Weighing her escape routes, the girl wonders if hitting the reset button right now wouldn't be the most optimized play. Out of nowhere, the bunny girl's eyes go completely wide, locking onto a player model spawning right down their street. Hitting full panic mode, she spams the point emote, frantically pinging her partner that the scammer bro just rendered in their zone. Before the masked guy can even check his minimap, a homeless NPC winds up a wooden club right behind his back. The player tries to process his teammates' frantic pings, squinting to see the scammer charging at them. With zero warning, the wooden club lands a massive critical hit right to the back of the kid's skull, applying an instant stun debuff. An aggroed mob of homeless NPCs traps the two fugitives in a dead-end alley, totally ready to wipe the scammers from the server. Watching the stream from the front row, Lin cracks a massive, triumphant grin seeing the fake beggars catch a total L. Tied up like a loot drop, the masked guy rolls on the pavement, screaming for his little brother to pop a heel and save him. Dragging the captives, the old NPCs totally roast the kid's toxic attitude for sticking to his fake lore. Standing perfectly still with his hands tied, the scammer just watches the dumpster fire unfold without ever breaking his NPC character. The homeless guy confirms he's dragging the duo straight to the admins, swearing that their beggar skins won't cancel out the bounty drop. Showing zero mercy, the furious mob drags the invaders away, basically grinding their hitboxes against the cobblestone. Trolling hard, Lin pokes at his old teammate, highlighting that his jail time is now a hard-coded fact. He runs the numbers and tells them that using disguises to dodge the ban just gave them a massive negative reputation multiplier with the guards. Flashing a totally evil grin, the kid asks his honorable partner if he's realized his account is basically bricked. Throwing up a massive theater kid performance, the MC turns his camera angle, pretending to cry over his lost party member. Swapping his face texture in half a second, the kid spams the hysterical cry emote, swearing his HP is at 0 from the heartbreak. Far away from the scammer's camera view, the beggar mob continues their escort mission to turn the players in for the gold drop. Strolling through the safe zones, Lin is amazed that the devs actually coded fully functional beggar factions into the game. But the server's incredibly slow response time to ban the griefers makes the kid suspicious, so he decides to just focus on his main quest log. Suddenly, a massive server lag spike catches his eye, pointing to a ridiculous cluster of players completely overloading the central plaza. Hooked by the random public event, the MC decides to walk over and inspect exactly what this massive raid group is trying to pull off. The massive wave of players is violently clipping into each other right outside a glorious martial arts hub in the middle of the plaza. Scanning the lobby, Lin figures out this entire mob of outsiders is just desperate to join the guild, which totally explains the server crash. The MC confirms that Ungabunga melee combat is the absolute meta for these players, totally getting why the building is drawing such massive aggro. In that second, he realizes the entry requirements just got leaked, which organically generated this insane queue of noobs trying to get recruited. Searching his own internal wiki, the kid remembers the city has 3 main establishments that pull recruits for different factions. This primary hub is run by the Zhang clan, prioritizing a combo-heavy combat style based on elemental damage. This exact guild also runs a black market syndicate and totally monopolizes the fast travel network in the zone. On the flip side, the second training ground is owned by the Mo bloodline, who strictly focus on maxing out their sword-wielding DPS. Most of the time, the fighters who grind in that academy end up getting hired as premium bodyguards for the VIP NPCs. Lastly, there's the Wu clan's lobby, famous for teaching a one-shot meta build called the Saber of 1000 Blades. On top of running an escort quest service, these fighters have massive reputation ties with the city's official military faction. Looking at the whole map, Lin figures these hubs basically just exist to hand out starter quests to the new players. Ready to exploit the market, he focuses on figuring out the exact stat requirements a user needs to officially enroll. The mystery gets solved when a green-haired player laughs, telling his buddy that the only barrier to entry is paying the gold fee. Absolutely triggered, his teammate screams, asking how anyone is supposed to farm gold in a closed beta where real-world pay-to-win mechanics are disabled. Watching the chat flame war, one user complains the dev team is garbage for locking the doors, but her teammate thinks the paywall makes the grind way better. Trying to drop the lobby's aggro, another player throws his hands up and tells the toxic duo to stop spamming the public voice chat. The kid drops a leak about a high-risk exploit to farm massive gold, saying it just requires a tiny bit of party loyalty to pull off the scam. Without hesitating, his buddies grab his shirt, confirming that level 1 avatars have zero fear of catching a ban or taking massive risks. Pointing a firm finger, they agree that if the run completely crashes, the ultimate out is just hitting the delete button and speedrunning the tutorial again. Keeping an eye on the toxic lobby from a safe distance, the MC realizes that having zero fear of a game over isn't even the biggest glitch in their brains. Facepalming hard, he feels a deep cringe at the fact that these players are fully prepared to permanently delete their own files the second they hit a minor difficulty spike.